Hi all. Till now, we studied in Chapter 1 about asexual reproduction. We studied that reproduction, which does not involve the union of gametes, we call it asexual reproduction. Before that, we studied concepts like what is lifespan, why do organisms have to reproduce. We studied examples dealing with various organisms and their lifespan. We discussed various examples of lower organisms which reproduce by asexual method, and we also listed a good number of vegetative propagules. I highlighted the point here that during asexual reproduction there is no scope for variation. They cannot create a new variety of organism. As long as the environment remains constant, they have no problem. But the moment the environment drastically changes, they fail to adapt and they die. So, there is a second method of reproduction. We call it sexual method of reproduction. By definition, sexual reproduction is reproduction which involves the union of gametes. Gametes are nothing but the sex cells. The sex cells, when unite, because they carry two different genetic material, the resulting cell should produce a new combination of genes. This is called variations, the differences. And these differences will benefit the organism to survive in a new environment. Thus, sexual reproduction is said to be superior when compared to asexual reproduction. The organisms pass through two phases. The young stage, we call it juvenile phase or vegetative phase. During this stage, they are quite young, small in size, the reproductive organs are not developed, they are not in the stage of reproduction. Once they attain a certain size, once they are capable of giving birth to young one, you call them reproductively capable organisms. They have now entered reproductive phase. The sex organs have developed. The organisms can now produce the special cells called gametes. The gametes are produced in organs called gonads. The reproductive organs produce reproductive cells. The reproductive cells from the male and the female come together, unite, create a zygote, and the zygote starts the new life, that is sexual reproduction. Organisms like bamboo plant, they grow in vegetative phase for something like 30 to 40 years. They do not produce any flowers in this time duration. After completing this long duration of vegetative phase, they suddenly produce flowers in thousands. And these flowers give rise to grains, the seeds, and finally the bamboo plant dies. You might have seen bamboo plants dying in your nearby forest area. You would have seen the elders picking up those bamboo grains and they make a dish out of it. You would have seen that. So these plants are very special. They live for decades. They never produce flowers. At the end of their life, they produce flowers, produce seeds, shed the seeds and die. The seeds will now take up the next generation. Similarly, there is one more plant by name Strobilanthes kunthiana. Strobilanthes kunthiana. It is locally known as Neela Kurinchi. Neela Kurinchi plants, they are spread all over in the Western Ghats, the Nilagiri hills, hills of Kerala, Karnataka, like Chikmagalur district, and such places. So this plant is a small shrub, and for 12 years it simply grows, does not produce any flowers. And after completing the 12 years of growth, the vegetative phase, they produce flowers. Beautiful violet colored flowers. They are in such large numbers that the whole hill looks bluish. Thus the name Neela Kurinji. So why you call the Ooty hills as Neelagiri hills? Now we got the point. So the blue color is because of the plants that flower at once. So last time in October 2006 they had flowered with full bloom. It was then repeated after 12 years. 2018 had a full bloom. Again, these plants, they show a long vegetative phase of say 12 years, followed by flowering, and then the death. The seeds are shed, the seeds give rise to plants, and the life cycle repeats. So these are some interesting cases discussed in the textbook. Examination point of view, you may expect questions like, what is the scientific name of Neela Kurinji? Or which plant flowers once in 12 years? Or what is the common name of Strobilanthes kuntiana, and so on. Then let us progress further. Let us now talk about animals. The animals can be classified into two groups based on the reproductive pattern. You know that most of the animals reproduce by sexual method. And the sexually reproducing animals are classified into two groups, namely seasonal breeders and continuous breeders. Seasonal breeders are those animals whose reproduction takes place in a favorable season. You understood what is meant by favorable season. When a young one is born, the young one should have a support of the nature. Consider an example like deer. When the young one is born, the young one must have good amount of food all over. There should be tender grass. There should be enough water available in any point of the forest, so the animal can quickly grow up. There should be no shortage of food. So animals which coincide their reproductive cycle to the favorable season, we call them seasonal breeders. Deer, one of the wild animals, is an example. We also have noticed that dogs are usually seasonal. Continuous breeders. These animals, they do not depend on the seasonal superiority. They don't need a favorable season. The animals somehow got evolved in such a way that they are able to manage availability of food throughout the year. Like humans accumulate food and make it available every next day. So even in this crisis, you are able to make variety of dishes every evening and you are enjoying it. So you understood what I mean to say. So animals which don't depend on the seasonal changes and can reproduce in any month of the year, you call them continuous breeders. For example, human. And I need not tell you that continuous breeders have an edge over seasonal breeders because they can produce young ones throughout the year, so they have a better survival chance. Whereas seasonal breeders, if they miss a season, they are not able to reproduce, so obviously the population shrinks. So these are superior compared to seasonal breeders. These animals can be classified in one more way, and we classify them into two groups, namely animals which perform estrous cycle, animals which perform menstrual cycle. In case of males, the ability of production of male sex cell is very simple. It is controlled by a limited number of hormones. Whereas the female of the species has a bigger responsibility. She has to prepare her reproductive organ in such a way that it is not only facilitating reproduction, the process of union of gametes, but also development of the young one. So she needs a lot of preparation, a lot of hormones have to be produced. Those animals which have a periodic changes in the female reproductive system where there is no bleeding involved, you call it estrous cycle. Let me explain. In case of animals like cow or deer and such lower animals which are not primates, you know that you belong to primate category. Mammals are classified into 17 different orders. One among them is primates. We are primates, the apes, the monkeys, Rest of the organisms you call them non-primates. In case of non-primates, the changes that take place in the reproductive system, you call it Easter cycle. And these changes are periodic. It means there is a constructive phase, there is a destructive phase. They produce new tissues, repair the reproductive organ, achieve fertilization, development of young one. Once the young one is delivered, the organs undergo degenerative change. It is followed by one more constructive phase. We call it periodic changes. So the definition for Easter cycle is periodic changes in the female reproductive system of non-primate mammals is Easter cycle, whereas periodic changes in the female reproductive system of primate mammals, we call it menstrual cycle. One unique difference between the two is, in Easter cycle, there will be no bleeding. The animals do not bleed if there is a failure of fertilization. Whereas in menstrual cycle, if fertilization is a failure, the female will bleed. She will lose a tissue called endometrium from her uterus, and the lost tissue comes out of the body in the form of blood. So you call it bleeding. So these are the 2 points you have to consider on if they ask you a question like differentiate between Easter cycle and menstrual cycle. For Easter cycle, you consider any non-primate, dog, cow, deer, etc. For menstrual cycle, you can consider animals like monkey, gorilla, chimpanzee, human, etc. So this is the introduction for sexual reproduction. So you understood asexual reproduction, various examples. We have now got the introduction for sexual reproduction. Here we understood 2 concepts, that the organisms cannot reproduce in the early stage of their life because they are in the juvenile stage or vegetative phase. Once the reproductive organs are fully developed, they have entered into reproductive phase. Some reproduce once in lifetime. Among animals, some prefer to reproduce during favorable season. Some can manage reproducing throughout the year. And among the mammals, there are 2 groups, non-primates and primates. Periodic changes of non-primate mammals, we call it Easter cycle. Periodic changes in the primate mammals, the female of the primate mammals, we call it menstrual cycle. Okay, we had an introduction for sexual reproduction. We understood sexual reproduction has an advantage. The young ones born are with differences. The differences can be useful or may not be useful. The differences are useful, it leads to better generations. There is a process of evolution. Sexual reproduction, I am continuing further. I have listed the events during sexual reproduction. What are the steps of sexual reproduction? I told you there are 2 stages in life, the juvenile phase and the reproductive phase. And during reproductive phase, there will be 3 events: pre-fertilization events, fertilization, post-fertilization events. Hope you can notice the difference. You understood these terms. Like you are now in pre-university, so you are yet to enter graduation. You will then enter into graduation, so BSc, BCom, BA, and then it is followed by post-graduation. So after 3 years of a degree course, you will study post-graduation. The same way here, you can understand the definition here. Fertilization, events before fertilization, events after fertilization. So pre-fertilization events, fertilization, post-fertilization events. Hope you are having a notebook and you are noting down these points. With these points, when you read the text, yes, you will get the complete knowledge of this chapter. Keep writing. This can appear as a question. You list the major events of sexual reproduction. Pre-fertilization event, fertilization, post-fertilization event. These are the 3 events of sexual reproduction. The biological changes that take place in the organism before fertilization is pre-fertilization event. Union of male and female gamete is fertilization. The male and female sex cells unite, you call it fertilization. Once they unite, they produce a special cell called zygote. How this zygote gives rise to young one, all these studies come under the topic post-fertilization events. So pre-fertilization event, fertilization, post-fertilization events. Let us take up the first topic, pre-fertilization events. It involves two steps. Step 1, gametogenesis. Step 2, gamete transfer. Formation of sex cells and the transfer of sex cells. The male and the female animals transfer their sex cells into a medium where they unite and give rise to next generation. Pre-fertilization events, it can be divided into two, gametogenesis and gamete transfer. So what are gametes? Gametes are the special cells capable of undergoing union. You have seen cells in microscope. You have never seen an onion cell uniting with another onion cell. It never happens. I cannot expect my skin cell to unite with my muscle cell, nor I can expect a RBC to unite with a WBC. All these are somatic cells, the body cells. They do not have the ability to unite with each other. But there are special cells called gametes. The gametes have the ability to unite with each other. So these gametes are produced variously. In case of lower organisms, the gametes produced are morphologically similar. You cannot distinguish between male and female gametes. You cannot distinguish these two gametes. You cannot say which one is male, which one is female. In case of lower organisms, the male and female is not defined. Both the gametes morphologically appear the same. Yes, they have genetic difference. Maybe if you want to call it, you call this a plus strain and this is a minus strain. Vice versa is also okay. You call this the minus strain and this the plus strain. No issues. They have some genetic difference, they have some hormonal difference. So, when these two gametes enter the water body, when they approach each other, due to the differences, they attract each other, they unite and they produce a zygote. I need not tell you what example is this. Yesterday we studied this. Chlamydomonas. In case of chlamydomonas, the two organisms behave as gametes. They attract each other, they unite and they produce zygote. Since the complete organism behaves as gamete, we can also call them hologametes. A complete organism behaves as gamete. So the name hologametes. Isogametes or homogametes, morphologically they cannot be distinguished. Example, chlamydomonas. This is a character of lower organisms. What are the disadvantages? Because the gametes both are motile, they keep moving and they may not reach each other. They may miss each other. To achieve the success of fertilization, there should be too many gametes so that there is a good percentage of fertilization. They cannot carry food because both of them have to move. Since they don't carry food, fertilization is a must in the first few minutes. If it fails, they die. They cannot last long. So the nature decided that this system is not working. I should modify. So the higher organisms prefer creating gametes of two different kinds. Gametes which are large, gametes which are small. There is a distribution of labor. The smaller gametes are designed to quickly move and reach the larger gamete. The larger gametes are designed to stay in one place and hold a lot of reservoir material In case there is a union, the product should be able to divide, give us the young one. For that, whatever the nutrition required, this cell holds. The larger gamete is called female gamete, the egg. The smaller gamete is called male gamete or the sperm. Sperm is also called the spermatozoid, antherozoid. Egg is otherwise called ovum. These terms were already familiar because last year we studied these terminologies. Hope it's clear now what is meant by homogametes and heterogametes. We being the higher organism, we reproduce by this method. The males produce sperm, females produce the egg. Now let us proceed further. There is a topic on sexuality of the organisms. You can see two tables here. This table explains sexuality in plants and this explains sexuality in animals. In case of plants, there are two groups of plants, homothallic plants, heterothallic plants. Homo means similar, hetero is different. Homothallic plants are also called monoecious plants. Mono is single, ecion is body or plant. The meaning is a single plant produces both male and female flowers. So this plant is bisexual. When the plant produces both male and female flowers, you call it monoecious. M for monoecious, M for maize. You link that way. This is the example. Maize plant, we have seen, the maize ear heads produced in the axil of a leaf and a cluster of male flowers produced at the tip of the plant body. The single plant produces both male and female flowers. The condition is monoecious. Opposite definition is, if the male and female flowers are produced by two different plants of the same species, we call it dioecious. Otherwise called unisexual plants. So you have a male plant, you have a female plant. Male plant produces male flowers, female plant produces female flowers. So this condition is called heterothallic or dioecious. D for dioecious, D for date palm. You link that way. So date palm, kharjurada mara. Kharjurada mara ನಾವು ನೋಡಿರಲ್ಲ. ಅಪರೂಪಕ್ಕೆ ನೋಡಿರಬಹುದು. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಹತ್ರ ಎಸ್ಕೇಪ್ ಆಗಿ ಬೆಳೆದಿರಬಹುದು. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ಡೆಸರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗಂಡು ಮರ, ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಮರ ಅಂತ ಎರಡು ಥರ ಮರ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಗಂಡು ಮರದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀ ಪೋಲನ್ ಡಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಮರದಲ್ಲಿ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಪೋಲನ್ ಡಸ್ಟ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬಿದ್ದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಿಮಗೆ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಖರ್ಜೂರ ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಮರದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಖರ್ಜೂರದ ಹಣ್ಣು ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಡೈಶಿಯಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. This condition is also noticed in papaya. So this is more familiar to you. The papaya fruits that you harvest is from the female tree. Sometimes you get a papaya tree with long branches having just the flowers, no fruits. Those are the male papaya trees. So idallu ashte ಎರಡು separate plants irutte, male tree, female tree, papaya. So heterothallic is dioecious. In case of animals, we don't use these words, monoecious, dioecious, it is restricted to plants. Animals are simply called unisexual and bisexual. If an organism produces only one type of sex organ, say organ is testis, the animal is called male. Sex organ present is ovary, the organism is called female. So organism possesses either testis or ovary. You call those animals unisexual. Most of the higher organisms are unisexual organisms. You can take your own example. Human is an example. Whereas bisexual organisms are those where a single organism possesses two different functional sex organs. They have both male sex organ as well as female sex organ. You call them bisexual. They are otherwise called hermaphrodites. Suppose if a question appears in the exam, what are hermaphrodites? Organisms having both male and female sex organ are called hermaphrodites. Example, earthworm, leech. Remember, these are the examples from phylum Annelida. They are hermaphrodites. They have both male and female sex organs. So what is the summary of sexual reproduction? Let me highlight. So this will give you the idea of sexual reproduction, the summary. The male organism produces the male gamete called sperm. This process is called gametogenesis. The female organism produces the female gamete egg. This process is again gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is followed by gamete transfer. They are made to meet each other. They unite. The union of gametes is called fertilization. And fertilization is followed by development, which is a post-fertilization event. Now considering our own example, we are a product of our parents. The father has contributed chromosomes to you. The mother has contributed her chromosomes to you. So how much of father's chromosome has come to us? How much of mother's chromosomes have come to us? Father carries 2 set of chromosomes, which we call 2N. N represents set of chromosomes. Father has 2 sets, but he can afford to give you only 1 set. Mother has 2 sets. She can afford to give you only 1 set. 2 sets, we call it diploid. 1 set, we call it haploid. The cells called myocytes, they are nothing but gamete mother cells, special cells capable of producing sperm or egg. We call them myocytes. They are located within the sex organ. They are located in the testis. They are located in the ovary. So those myocytes undergo meiosis, the reduction division. Remember, first year, 10th chapter, we studied cell division, a special cell division called meiosis. So, the myocyte undergoes meiosis and produces sperm and egg, respectively in 2 different organisms. Later, the gametes meet, resulting in formation of zygote. So, 2N means diploid, N means haploid. In case of animals, organisms are diploid, the gametes produced by them are haploid. I have given you a list of examples here. So these examples can give you an idea about what is diploid, what is haploid. See, these are the chromosomes you studied last year, thread-like structures found within the cell during cell division. Each chromosome is a chemical combination of DNA and proteins. This is where our information of personality is written. The chromosome number is very specific to each species. Randomly, in our text, they have given some examples, and the specific chromosome number is highlighted. For humans, the diploid chromosome number is 46. For a rat, it's 42. Dog, 78. Cat, 38. Butterfly, 10 times the cat, 380. Fruit fly, it's a tiny insect found in your dustbin. It has only 8 chromosomes. Housefly, 12 chromosomes. Apple, 34. Rice, 24. Maize, 20 is the chromosome number. Potato, 48. Onion, 16. Interestingly, there is a tiny fern called Ophioglossum. It's hardly a few centimeters in length. This plant has a huge number of chromosomes, something like 1260. We don't know why. Why so many chromosomes? We don't know. We also notice one more interesting thing, that the number of chromosomes has nothing to do with intelligence of an organism. It is just random. In fact, the dog has more chromosomes than you. So this number has nothing to do with your intelligence factor. It is just a specific number of chromosomes in each species. It is unique to each species. So you consider your own chromosome, you can say a friend's chromosome, because both of you belong to human species, both of you must have 46 each. You take a cell and count the chromosomes, it should be 46. That's called the chromosome number. So these are the chromosome numbers of various species. In NEET exams, you can expect this as a question. So we had a question on NEET exams, what is the diploid chromosome number of apple? So we'll answer 34. You should read the question properly. Sometimes they twist the question and ask you, what is the haploid chromosome number of apple? Remember, this is 2n number, so divided by 2. N number of chromosomes will be 34 by 2, that is 17. So you should carefully read the question and choose the correct option. So this completes the topic gametogenesis under pre-fertilization events. This will be now followed by gamete transfer. So till now we have studied some of the events in sexual reproduction. We understood what is sexual reproduction. It involves the union of gametes. We understood there are 3 events: pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization events. We understood various terminologies under pre-fertilization events. There are 2 subtopics: gametogenesis, gamete transfer. Under gametogenesis, we understood difference between isogametes or say homogametes versus heterogametes. We understood chromosome number of various species. We understood how exactly the gametes unite and give rise to young ones. Difference between monoecious, dioecious, we understood. Difference between unisexual and hermaphrodite, we understood. Let us continue further. Pre-fertilization events, the second event is gamete transfer. The male and female gametes are produced by male and female individuals. Now they have to be transferred, they are made to reach each other. We call this process gamete transfer. In case of lower organisms, the male and female gametes both are motile, means they are capable of movement. So they move because of the chemical attraction, they move towards each other, and it is followed by fertilization. So gametes move by themselves in case of lower organisms. That is how they achieve gamete transfer. In case of flowering plants, the flower, we studied this last year, chapter 5, morphology of flowering plants. So after the class, you will sit, open the textbook, study the parts of the flower. You understand that there is something called pistil, the female part, the stamen, the male part. The pistil part of the flower holds the egg. The stamen part release pollen grains. The pollen grains travel in the wind and reach the female part, or maybe insects can help in transfer of pollen. We call this process pollination. So gamete transfer in plants take place due to pollination. Whereas in animals, the male and female animals themselves have to come together, they have to reach each other, then only they can achieve the gamete transfer process. So because they are able to move, they just approach each other, they attract each other, it is followed by the act of fertilization. So this is about gamete transfer process. That completes your first topic under events, the pre-fertilization events. The next topic is fertilization. By definition, fertilization is union of male and the female gametes. Union of male and female gametes result in zygote formation. There are some exceptions. Organisms, if they skip the process of fertilization and still can produce young ones, that is something very interesting. We call this process parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is the ability of an organism to produce young one without fertilization. Birds like turkey fowl can do this. They lay egg, and the egg hatches to produce young one, and the animal had not come in sexual contact with the male. So without a sexual contact, they can still give birth to young ones. It's a very special event and we call it parthenogenesis. The male honeybees are produced by parthenogenesis. The queen lays unfertilized eggs, they eventually develop into male honeybees. How exactly it happens, you need to wait. We have a chapter for this. We discuss how a male honeybee is created. In the later chapters, we will study this, don't worry. Lizards, some of the lizards also have developed this parthenogenetic mechanism of reproduction. So they need not wait for the opposite sex, they simply lay the eggs give birth to young ones. How exactly this may happen? Probably they produce gametes without meiosis. The very meiocyte directly functions as egg. So they can skip fertilization and still can produce young ones. That's a very special case. So this may be an interesting question in the exam. What is parthenogenesis? Give example. And you got the answer. Ability of an organism to produce young one without the act of fertilization is parthenogenesis. Example, turkey fowl, male honeybee and lizards. When fertilization takes place, we call it by the name syngamy. Union of male and female gamete is fertilization or syngamy. This is the word we use to refer to fertilization. Where does it take place? There are two possibilities. It can be taking place in the medium of water. Think of lower organisms like fish, frog. Frogs of the opposite sex, they meet each other, they enter into water body and they release their sex cells into water. The male and female gametes unite in the medium of water. We call this external fertilization. If the union of male and female gametes take place in the medium of water, we call it external fertilization. In contrast, in case of higher organisms, they achieve internal fertilization. That means the union of male and female gametes take place inside the reproductive system of female. What is the advantage? You can easily understand that external fertilization demands a lot of gametes. A frog in a season produces about 5,000 eggs, out of which only 5% of the young ones survive. A human produces just one egg every time. So how much of savings the higher organisms could do with internal fertilization, you understood. External fertilization, there is a risk of environmental fluctuations, there is a risk of predators, so it's not very efficient. Whereas in internal fertilization, the male and female gametes, they are made to unite in the female body and she can protect the gametes, thus the rate of success is higher. So, internal fertilization is a better mechanism. Example for external fertilization, frog. For internal fertilization, you consider human. Human is an example. This is about the topic fertilization, the second event in sexual reproduction. The third event is post-fertilization event. Events that take place after fertilization. The male and female gametes unite. The product of union, we call it zygote. Zygote is a product of sperm and the egg. So it carries two sets of chromosomes. One set of chromosomes from the father, one set of chromosomes from the mother. So N plus N has become 2N. This cell is a starting cell. We all started our lives as one cell and that one cell is zygote. This zygote, through repeated cell divisions, produce millions and millions of cells, and that makes your body. You are made up of millions of cells. All those cells have come from zygote due to repeated cell division. The type of cell division is mitosis. This process of a single cell zygote becoming many cell structure, we call it embryogenesis, where genesis means to produce. Producing what? Producing the embryo. The zygote gives rise to a few celled body, and the few celled body is called embryo. Obviously, the chromosome number is again 2n. So zygote develops into embryo through cell division, and the cell division process is called embryogenesis. It is not only cell division but also cell differentiation. Cells have to specialize. One cell, when undergoes first mitosis, gives rise to 2 cells. Second mitosis, 4 cells. One more mitosis, 8 cells, and so on. When thousands of cells are produced, cells distribute the labor. Some of them become the skin, some of them become the muscle, some of them become the blood, and that is called cell differentiation. So finally, you get the young one. So when it is inside the mother's body, you call it embryo. When it grows up and moves out of the body, you call it a young one. This is post-fertilization event. So these post-fertilization events will take place in plants. The ovary part of the flower holds the future young ones. They were inside the ovary as ovules. The ovules develop into seed, and this ovary grows to form the fruit wall or pericarp. For example, a mango, the pulp of the mango that you enjoy is the fruit wall. The seed is held inside that. So flower has ovary part. After fertilization, ovary develops into fruit, and the fruit wall is called pericarp. We'll study more about this in the next chapter. So only a sum up is given here. Don't worry, we'll study more about this in the next chapter. In case of animals, the development can happen in 2 ways. We classify them as 2 groups of organisms called oviparous animals, viviparous animals. Animals which release eggs outside their body are called oviparous. I need not tell you, all the birds and the lizards, some primitive mammals like platypus are oviparous. Laying eggs is oviparity. Instead, if the mother gives rise to young one, you call it viviparous condition. All the higher mammals, they reproduce by viviparous method. The young one is made to grow inside the mother's body. The mother gives all the care, all the protection. So once full growth takes place, it comes out of the mother's body. You call it viviparous. So oviparous, example birds, they lay eggs. Usually the egg is covered by a calcareous shell. It is for protection. In case of viviparous organisms, the young one is given birth. When you consider the advantage here, obviously viviparous animals have an advantage. The mother is taking care of the young one. In case of oviparous organisms, the risk of egg being destroyed by some predator or some environmental change may destroy the egg. So these are primitive organisms and these are advanced organisms. And with this topic, we conclude Chapter 1, Reproduction in Organisms.